Over to you, Sridevi.
Thank you, ma'am. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the second session. Just a heads up, today's session is going to be a little more intense than yesterday because there's a lot of self-work involved in today's session. So yesterday I spoke about the symptoms, the causes, and then we did a short assessment, and then I spoke about behavioral activation, right? So today I'm going to talk about thinking. So I'm basically in today's session, what I would like all of you to do is, if you all have a notebook and a pen, or if you have a phone next to you, it would be really nice for you to just do the activity as I'm explaining it. So I'm going to share my screen now. Okay, just 1 second. All right, so in and out of depression, session number 2. Like I mentioned, these are the 3 things I'm going to be covering today: ABC analysis, detective work, and the end result. So in ABC analysis, I'm going to talk about how to differentiate between thoughts and feelings, how to identify distressing thoughts, and how you can change them, right? So a lot of times what happens is we often get confused between our thoughts and our feelings, right? Sometimes we think we are scared, but we'd actually be anxious instead. Sometimes we might think we are angry, but we're actually disappointed instead. The part of the bigger problem is that we never vocalize our emotions. We never vocalize our feelings. We don't find words for the feelings that we're having. We always use words like I'm angry, or I'm sad, I'm frustrated, I'm irritated, but there are so many more words that you could possibly use, right? So sometimes what happens is, what really makes us feel and respond the way we do is not the situation or the words or the action, but how we perceive the situation or the action. This is, you would have noticed, it's very common. Miscommunication happens because of this. Someone might say something to you and you just assume that that person is attacking you, or that person is blaming you, or that person is upset with you, without even stepping back or without trying to figure out why you are having those feelings, right? And most of the times it's so quick and it's so automatic that we don't even realize that this is happening. And this is part of the problem. This is what affects the way you look at things, the way you feel, and the way you think. And this could also lead to not being able to understand how you feel and not being able to put it out in words. I'm sure there must be days where you're feeling very sad, or when you're just feeling very disappointed, or feeling very worthless, or feeling very hopeless, and you just can't find these words to explain what you're feeling. You just be like, I don't know, I just feel weird, I just don't know, I feel like the days are very hazy, I don't know, I feel like time is just passing by. This, I don't know, I think this is what is happening to me. But we never say I am feeling this, or I am feeling that, or I did feel this when that happened, right? So how do we start? This is where the ABC method comes into play. So what does it stand for? ABC starts with identifying the A, which stands for activating event. So while I'm doing this, it would be really nice if you could just, write it down for your own reference, of course. Activating event is an event or a situation that happened in which you experienced a very strong negative emotion, right? It can be anxiety, it can be stress, it can be depression, it can be anger, it can be sadness, it can be frustration, it can be irritation, anything, but a strong negative emotion that you felt. Now, when you are writing down the activating event, it is very important to remember that this is a very factual recording of what has happened. So you don't have to include your thoughts about why it happened, or who was responsible for what happened, or how you felt when it happened. None of that, no frills. So it's like, you're taking a video can be anything, you're just recording everything as facts. Once you're done doing that, you move on to identifying the C, which stands for consequences. This is where you write about your feelings and your actions and behaviors. So remember, this is about you and not the other person or the other people who were involved in the situation. So once you're done with A, you think about the consequence, you think about the feelings that you had at that moment, you write down what actions, what did you do over there, you write it down in words that best describe your feeling, right? And then after that, you rate the emotion that you felt. You rate the intensity from 0 to 100. So 100, the higher the number, the more intense the emotion is. Now remember, it doesn't have to be one emotion. You can't, like, it can be multiple emotions. You can say, I felt disappointed, I was also angry, I was also feeling sad, I was also feeling frustrated. So it doesn't have to be one particular emotion, but choose the one that represents your feeling at that moment the most and rate that emotion, right? So once that is done, keeping in mind the situation and what you felt, you need to identify your B, which is your beliefs, which is basically your thoughts, your expectation, your attitude, your perception. So how do you find out what your beliefs are? You ask yourself, what was I thinking when the event occurred? For example, say you're going out with a bunch of your friends, and you feel like, you think to yourself, oh, I don't think my friends want me to be here, right? So what is your belief? What was the feeling? What happened that made you think like that, and why were you thinking like that, right? So what happened when that made you feel like that, or what were you thinking when that event occurred, right? Then what was going through my mind at that time? What were my other thoughts that led me to this particular thought? And once you write down a thought list, what you can do is you can underline these statements and try to find which emotion that you felt the most during the activating event. So going back to the A. Now you can call that your hot thought, right? And you rate it from 0 to 100. I know I'm going a little fast. If you want me to slow down, please let me know. Does anybody have any doubts till now? Is there any questions that you would like to ask? I have this worksheet, by the way. So if you would like me to send you the worksheet, I can send it to you as a Google Sheet for your reference, for you to use at home. Right, so this is how it looks. So you have your A, which is your activating event. Then you have your B, which is your beliefs, and your C, which are your consequences, right? So in your consequences, you write down words that describe how you feel. Underline the one that is most associated with the activating event. Rate the intensity of those feelings and jot down any physical sensation that you carried or actions that you carried out, right? B is list all the self statements that link A to C. Ask yourself, what was I thinking? What was I saying to myself? What was going through my head at that time? Find the most distressing thought and underline it, and rate how much you believe this thought from 0 to 100. So this is not how you feel about it, but how much you believe in that statement. Moving on to the next section, which is detective work. So once you're done doing this, the ABC basically stands for trying to more streamline your thought process. This, a lot of times, what happens when we are very frustrated, or when we are, when we experience heightened emotions, be it happy emotions or negative emotions, we don't see things rationally. We get, our judgment gets clouded, and we tend to make decisions that may or may not be good for us, right? You may end up spending a lot more money when you're happy, and you may end up saying things that you wouldn't necessarily say to someone when you're sad, and then later you might end up regretting both. So this activity basically would help you get a more clearer picture of what happened without any added information. Another thing to keep in mind is, sometimes when there are negative experiences, as time passes, we sort of keep adding more information to that. So, for example, if you and your friend have had a fight, you keep this in your mind. About a week later, you tell this to another person, and that person might say, "Oh, you're right. That person is always like this, and they always talk like this." Now, whatever the other person, your other friend has said, it may get added on to the original conflict that you had with your friend. Then sometime later, you might add on more information. So the original event that occurred just becomes this new mutated thing, and you will start losing the point of your fight in the first place. So this activity will also avoid that situation, right? So in detective work, I'm going to talk about how you challenge these unhelpful thoughts, and then a worksheet like ABC, where you can write it down in a more in a better format for you to get a more understanding of how you're feeling. So before challenging these unhelpful thoughts, how do you uncover unhelpful thoughts? How do I know which thoughts are unhelpful and which thoughts are helpful for me? Right off the bat, negative thoughts are unhelpful thoughts, yes, but sometimes we don't recognize the depth of it. For example, today, my colleague and I, we were talking, and we were discussing how sometimes when we have clients who come to us, they'll come with very mundane problems, so to say. They'll say, "Oh, I'm not able to complete my work because I have I'm just very stressed, and I just need you to teach me how to manage my time better." But when you actually dwell a little more and ask more questions, you'll find out that there is a deeper meaning to that. There is a deeper problem there, and it's not as superficial as it seems. And a lot of times when we have negative thoughts, there might be a deeper meaning behind it. There might be some unresolved trauma or some unresolved negative experience that is causing that issue, right? So how do you figure that out? You ask yourself something called a thought discovery questions. Thought discovery question is basically just questioning your thought over and over again till you reach to the bottom of that, right? So questions like, what is bad about that? Or what is it that I see happening in this situation? What am I concluding about myself or others in this situation? And this is bad because, and what does that say about me? For example, you might feel, my friends don't like me, or my friends don't want me to be here. So, you can ask yourself, why am I concluding this? What is making me think like this? What evidence do I have to support this particular thought that I have? Has someone said something to me? Or is this something that I'm making up? Or did I misunderstand the situation? So when you keep questioning the thoughts, the negative thoughts that you are having, that will lead you to find out where this negative thought is actually stemming from. So when a person experiences unhelpful emotions, there might be strong body physical reaction to it, right? So tightness in the chest, increasing in blood pressure, or heaviness in the shoulder, or just general lethargy. Sometimes when you're really angry, you might see your body temperature rise, you're like sweating, all of that. So that is also an indicative of unhelpful emotions that you are feeling, your physical reaction that your body gives you. Sometimes we forget, sometimes we don't pay attention to our thoughts as much as our bodies. So sometimes it's good to, do a body scan where you look at which parts of your body is tight, which parts of your body you feel pain. That may be indicator or some negative experience or some psychological distress that you may be having, right? So once you have realized that you have a lot of unhelpful thinking, or you have noticed that there is a pattern of unhelpful thoughts that is there, it is best to ask yourself questions. This is something that we do in counseling a lot, where we ask our clients a lot of questions to help them uncover their thoughts and their feelings. A lot of people think counseling is just someone will come and sit, they'll say their problem and we'll give them an advice or a solution and everything is hunky-dory. No, it's actually very exploratory. I would never know what your life is or what your experiences are, and I can never give you an answer for a question like that, right? So the best way for me to help you understand yourself, and in the process for me to understand you, is by asking you follow-up questions for every negative thought that you might have. So like I mentioned before, what is the evidence or proof that my thoughts or beliefs are true? So taking that example, my friends don't want me to be here, I am a burden on my friends. What evidence do I have? Have they said it to me, to my face? Have they indicated it, in actions? Have they passed any snarky comments that has led me to believe this? Is there any evidence that disproves my thought? Okay, so I believe that I am a burden to my friends, but do I have evidence that is against that thought? Like maybe days where I've told my friends I don't want to hang out with them, but they have begged me to come be with them. If I was a burden and if they didn't want me, they wouldn't do that, right? Why would someone beg you to hang out with them if they think you are bad company? How do I know that my thoughts and beliefs are true? Okay, so what, apart from this evidence, what else can I do to prove that proves that my thought is right? Are there facts that I'm ignoring or I've overlooked? Am I only looking at the negative? Am I dismissing some positive experiences that I have had? What other explanation could there be for me for feeling like this? So maybe at home my parents probably don't treat me really well, they don't give me too much attention, or my previous set of friends just took me for granted, and that is a trauma that I'm carrying into my new relationships, things like that. How realistic are my thoughts, beliefs, and expectations? Sometimes what happens, we have such high expectations from people, but we never tell them what we want. And when they don't do those things for us, we're just like, yeah, I was right. This person doesn't respect me, or this person doesn't value me. And, I obviously they don't love me and they don't want to be with me because they didn't even do this, they didn't even do that. To begin with, people are not mind readers, right? So if they were mind readers, life would be so much easier. Unless we specifically, explicitly state our wants and our needs and our expectation in relationship, we will set ourselves up for failure. So ask yourself, how realistic are my thoughts? How realistic are my expectations? How realistic are my beliefs? So when you ask these questions, you are challenging the thoughts and beliefs and expectations that you have, and this is the way you test to see whether these thoughts are correct or not. That will either help you move on, or it'll show you whether these thoughts are helping you move or they're stopping you from progressing. So some other questions you can ask is, what other way can you view the situation? How might someone else view the situation? Yesterday, I mentioned that a lot of times we are the best at giving advice, like A1 advice giving. Any friend comes with any problem without any context, you would have at least three solutions for them. If A doesn't happen, you can do B. If B doesn't happen, you can do C. If C doesn't happen, you can do D. Everything. But when it comes to ourselves, what do? It might be a similar problem. Nahi, I can't do this. Nahi ho raha. I don't know what to do. Why is that? Because we don't take our problems as serious. We need to take a step back and look at the situation from a different perspective, a third perspective, to get a better sense of what is happening. So ask yourself, how might someone else view this situation? If I was not depressed, or if I was not anxious, or if I was not sad, how might I view this situation differently? There is this saying, and I'm sure or at some point our parents would have said this to us, right? If you wake up angry, the whole day will be angry. If you wake up sad, everything during that day would make you sad. It's the same thing. When you are sad, everything around you seems sad. When you are angry, everything is just going to add on to that anger. So ask yourself, if you were not in that negative space, how would you be viewing this situation? Then ask yourself, realistically, what is the likelihood of that negative thing happening? And is it helpful for me to think this way? The most important question is asking yourself, how is this helpful? Sometimes overthinking, I'm not saying overthinking is ever good, but sometimes overthinking might help if you actually end up with solution, right? So what is your solution? You have thought about it for days together. What conclusion have you arrived at? So like the previous ABC, this is a format for your how to find out the evidence for doing detective work to find out whether or not your hot thought is true or not. So you write down your hot thought, and then you write down what evidence do you have that supports this, and then what evidence do you have that is against it, right? So I went through questions earlier. Those are the questions that you asked to write this down. All right. So before I move forward, does anybody have any doubts or any clarification or anything that you would like to add? Okay, so moving on. I know that this seems very heavy, and I know that this is a lot of information for you to process, but feel free to reach out to me and I will send you, I can send you notes for you to sit and read at leisure and, absorb all of these information. So to summarize the detective work part, it's about trying to be more objective of our thoughts by evaluating to see whether the information that we have makes us be better or not. And it requires a lot of evidence. You're like you are doing detective work, because you are dissecting everything, all the thoughts that you've had, and questioning yourself over and over again to figure out why you are having those negative thoughts. And then you are also disputing it, right, by asking counter questions to see, if you were in a different mind space, how would you have reacted? If this was someone else, how would you have reacted? If I'm looking at from a third person thing, how would I analyze this position of the situation? So it is a lot of heavy work. And once all of that is done, we come to the absolute last part, which is the end result. In this, I'm going to talk about how you can get a more balanced thought, how you can follow through, and how you can do some self-management. Again, before I move forward, I'm just going to quickly ask if anybody has any doubts, or if you want me to go through any other slide or repeat any concept that I have spoken about. All right. Okay. So I know this seems like you are asking yourself a lot of questions, but unfortunately, how else will you get to the bottom of it, right? If you watch any murder mystery movies or TV shows or cartoons, you'll see that there are so many people asking so many questions, and that's exactly how you dissect your own thoughts. How can I revise my hot thought to take into account all of the evidence that I've listed? I have written down what experience made, what was the event that happened. I have written down what emotions I felt, and I have rated those emotions. I have written down what are my beliefs of that situation and what are my feelings. I have asked myself why I felt that way or why I thought that way. I have also written down evidence that supports and goes against the negative thoughts that I have had. I have done all of this. Now, keeping all of that in mind, how do I change the hot thought that I've had? What change can I make? What conclusion have I basically drawn from all of this? I've done all of this, now what? So this revised thought becomes your balanced thought. This is exactly what you do with your friends when they have negative thought. All I have done is given it a more structure. Imagine yourself talking to your friend and your friend is saying, I don't know, man, no matter how much I study, no matter what I do, I'm just not able to score marks. I'm just so useless. I should just quit. What would you do? You would first ask them, what happened? Why are you suddenly saying this? You were fine yesterday. So your friend is going to first give you an activating event. Your friend is going to say, no, like something like, oh no, I just got my report card from my semester exams and I haven't scored. I saw my marks and they were really bad. So that becomes your activating event. So and then your friend will probably tell you how they felt. They might say, I felt so worthless, I felt so bad, I felt so angry because I put in so much effort. So that becomes what? That becomes your consequence, right? Then comes the belief. I feel so worthless, I'm useless. Like, what is the point of me studying so much for me to only get marks like this? So I'm useless, I'm worthless. That becomes your belief. So then you'd ask your friends, no, why are you saying that? What makes you think you're useless? What you've done so much, before? And then your friend would be like, what did I do? And then you list out, oh, but you're good at this, you're good at that. You've done this, you've done that. Maybe you're having problems at home, that's why you're not able to study. Maybe you're having relationship trouble, that's why you weren't able to focus. We're in the middle of pandemic, it's very hard to focus at home, things are not all right. So what are you doing? You are doing detective work. You're trying to dispute all of this negative thoughts that person has had. And then that your friend might be like, yeah, you're right, I did this, I did that. So that is how you revise your hot thought. So it's actually something that we already do in our life, except that, you know, this is a more streamlined, formatted way for you to do it for yourself, instead of having to wait for someone else come and validate you, or someone else ask you these questions. So your revised thought is your balanced thought, and that thought comes after you take in all of the evidence, all of the information, everything that you have written down. And that is what is your fifth step of the ABC analysis. So A is activating event, B is your belief, C is your can someone tell me what C is? No. Okay, C is your consequence, D is your detective work, and E is your results. So that is your end result. Once that happens, you can ask yourself, how do I feel? Write that down, look at your consequence, which is your first emotion that you felt, and now you can re-rate the emotions. Then you go through your D, that is your detective work and disputation. You re-rate what your thoughts were then. All of this is going to help you get a more clear and objective, it's a more clear and objective way of processing your thoughts and your feelings. Now, all of that is good, all of that is fine, but how do you follow through? You have to practice. You have to repeat this process. You have to repeat all of these steps over and over again till it becomes a skill. You know, they say it takes 21 days for anything to form a new habit. That's what this is. As you start doing it regularly, it will become an unconscious thing to you. So next time when you have a negative thought, your mind will automatically process that negative thought this way, and it'll automatically, you will reach the balanced thought without you having to look at your notes and be like, okay, now I have to do step 1 and then step 2 and step 3. So you can have thought cards where you have written down your beliefs, you have written down everything, and you carry it with you so that, you know, you keep reasserting it to yourself. And you turn your thoughts into actions. The minute you have a negative thought, you ask yourself, okay, what can I do to reinforce my balanced thought? If I feel like, okay, my friends think that I feel like my friends don't want to hang out with me. I've gone through this process and I've realized that it was wrong and it was all in my head. What do I do to change that? I reinforce this thought by talking to my friends, being more vocal about how I feel. And then I try to spend more time with them. I try to be more present while I'm with them. So that is how you turn your thoughts into action. So this is the review. You first recognize your activating event and your consequence. Then you identify your thoughts. Then you do some detective work and you find evidence to support or to go against the thought that you've had. And then you think about your unhelpful thought and you move it to a balanced thought, right? And now is the final part, which is your self-management. It is very important to remember that whenever you are on the journey of change, there will be moments where you slip up, and there will be days where you feel very low and very down and just not good. And it's okay, because you're human. You can't be happy all the time. You can't be positive all the time. You can't have things under control all of the time. So it is fine. So if you fail, don't think, oh no, I'm never going to get better. Just think like, okay, this happened. What do I do to move on? Or it's okay, I'm just going to like chalk this off as one-off days that I wasn't feeling well. Right? Get a good social support. This is very important. You have friends, you have family, talk to them. This does not mean you use them as your counselors. No, you please get in touch with me or Liza for that. But this is more in terms of venting. You just want to get things off your chest. It's a good way to do that. You know, get in touch with your friends or your family. So talk to whoever you think you're very close with. Right? So that is this is the last slide. It is important that you keep applying and practicing the strategies that you learn through this module. You will find that through consistency and continuous practice, you will be able to integrate all of these things into your lifestyle. And as always remember, progress may be a bumpy road at times, but it's always a rewarding journey on the whole. Right? All right. So does anybody have any doubts or any queries that they would like to clarify? Any feedback that you would like to give? Again, I'm mentioning this. If you want the worksheet, I can email it to you later.